Welcome on in, everybody, to the Check Your Brain podcast here on Patreon or wherever you're listening to this. Could be for free on Wednesday, or you can listen, earlier Wednesday morning on the Check Your Brain podcast Patreon. So go subscribe at patreon.com/Tony Mazur or get it for free like all the other freeloaders here, as I'm now craving Mr. Hero from my friend, comedian from Cleveland by way of New York. That's Ray DeVito. What's up, Ray? How are you?
Hey, how you doing, buddy? Doing good.
I'm doing pretty well myself, and I was the last time I had you on, you were one of my first guests on the podcast about 2 years ago, and I played your tips to living in New York City, and I'm like, okay, well, I already played that, so I had to find the one about you in Cleveland, and I mean, you're somebody that you and I have done a bunch of gigs together and everything. And you're a Cleveland guy who's just, I can never tell where you are. It's like some days it's like, hey, I'm in Astoria, we're doing a show in Brooklyn. And then it seems like the next day it's like, hey, I'm in Lakewood and we're doing a show here. So it's like, you're always on the move in between New York and Cleveland. How many times have you driven that stretch on, I'm assuming I-80, right?
Oh, a zillion times. Yeah. Yeah, no, a zillion times, man. I know I-80 pretty well.
It's a lot of nothing.
Yeah, no, just always got to be on the road. It's like part of the deal. I will say that unless I'm headlining, I really don't promote the gigs. Like I don't, you know what I mean? Like I don't want to be like, hey. So yeah, if I'm headlining, I promote the gigs. But otherwise, like, yeah, I'm all over the country though.
Yeah, it's that trip. So my first question to you is Wawa, Sheetz, or Get Go? As I drink from my Wawa cup here,
I'm gonna say I would say Sheetz just because like I'm used to Sheetz. I know what I'm getting, and also Sheetz. Yeah, I'd say Sheetz. I'd say Sheetz. Also because Sheetz has I have a slow leak in one of my tires. So I always need to fill up my tire, and it's got like free air. Like nothing's worse when you pull in a gas station. It's like $2 for air. But I have to fix a slow leak, especially with winter coming. But funny thing about that Cleveland video though that you showed is I don't know. I don't want to say I'm the reason why they did it, but after that video came out, literally like a month later, Mr. Hero got rid of all their billboards that said texture order.
Really?
Because they were all over the place. I was just making a joke like, yeah, only a local chain could be like, yeah, where it says like texture order ahead. Like, yeah, I know you're driving 80 miles per hour, but go ahead, take out your phone, order some food. Why not? Like, obviously you don't care about your health. You're ordering Mr. Hero. But all those billboards of them like texture order online are all gone. They no longer exist. They all got replaced with what's now just like a picture of a ramen burger being like, hey, come try Mr. Hero. So they no longer have texture order ahead.
For folks outside the 75-mile radius of Cleveland, Ohio, we have a place called Mr. Every town has a Mr. Hero at some point. Yeah. It's like a local chain where the food's really not that good, or it used to be good decades ago.
It's not bad. Now ramen burger's all right. It's all right.
I'm a once a year Roman burger guy, and then I get sick and I have diarrhea or whatever. Unless, of course, you're trying.
Your day's done. You eat a Roman burger, your day's done. Like,
okay,
yeah.
I was just making sure you're not gunning for trying to be their spokesperson.
No, your
I didn't want to shit on that.
Yeah, but I was going to say, if not for them, none of us would know that it is still possible to buy 5,000 calories for only $8.99. So, shout out to Mr. Hero for that.
God, every town has their own Mr. Hero of like some sort where it's a local chain. It's probably run by Pakistanis or Indians, and you go there, they yell at you about your order. It's not healthy for you. You need to order it on Friday so you'll be good. If you have work Monday, you're gonna be good and all completely digested by then.
Yeah. It's they're definitely like independently owned. Like everyone you go to is completely different. Like some they're overly nice to you, other ones they just want you out of there immediately. Yeah, it's definitely like not like a corporate franchise where like everyone's like a mom and pops thing.
Well, my mom is from Chicago, and she's telling me we used to when she lived in Joliet, which is in the Chicagoland area.
I know Joliet.
And
Joliet Jake.
That's right, Joliet Jake and Elwood Blues.
Yeah.
And filmed at the prison. And so that's where my mom's from. And what's interesting about being in Chicago is everyone thinks of Chicago as deep dish pizza. And they're like, no, that's not a thing. That's like a tourist thing that they created like a couple of decades ago, that they were used to almost like as flat as a cracker with the pizza. So I'll ask you a stupid food question of being in New York. Is the food as good as people think it is in New York? Or because I've had the pizza, and I'm not Italian. So you're Italian. You're probably a bit better judge of this, but I'm like, yeah, pizza is pizza to me. There's some pizza is pretty good. I had the 99-cent pizza place over at next to John Sullivan's. It's 7th Avenue and 35th. I'm like, yeah, it's not bad. It's not different from the Ray's that's down the street. So, from being from Cleveland and being a food, with our food scene, are you a critic, or do you just not care? You just need something in your system?
Oh, no, New York definitely has like the best food just for the fact that like everything's there. Like I'm usually in Astoria when I'm there. So there's an Indian restaurant that's great. There's um like a Slovakian place, which I didn't even know they have this thing called Savapi. It's like this flour pita with like um they're like sausage, but not really. And then you put like just onions on it, cold onions, and this red pepper sauce, and it's fantastic. But like if I wasn't in New York City, like I never had Slovak, like it's called Savapi with a Cevapi. And yeah, it's
Slovak. It's you said Slovak, not souvlaki. It's
no, the name of
Slovak.
I don't know exactly what they always have, like some Eastern European soccer game on their television. So it's one
Okay.
of those countries. Like I don't know if it's Slovakia or whatever, but Savapi is what it's called. Cevapi is the food, and it's fantastic. And yeah, and like I never would have known about it if I didn't like live in New York. So yeah, and as far as pizza, the thing about it's cool about like New York pizza is you get it by the slice. So like you could eat 2 slices and like you're good for the day. Like it's not like in Ohio you have to order an entire pizza and then your night's over because you don't eat just 2 slices.
Yeah, you basically in Ohio we have the noon style where you either get a full pizza at any time,
Yeah.
or from like noon until 2 o'clock you can get pizza by the slice, and that's the only way they'll make it. But yeah, no, it was nice going to a couple of places having pizza by the slice. Going back to the Subway when I was over in New York a couple of months ago.
Yeah, your
But
day can go on after you eat the pizza. It's not like in Ohio if you get a pizza like it's in your stomach because you're not going to eat just 2 slices. You're going to keep eating it because it's there and it's hot.
yeah, and it's next door to Mr. Hero, so then you get waffle fries with the
Yeah,
cheese sauce, the bukkake of cheese sauce you get there. So
yeah, I never liked cheese sauces. Like Cheese Whiz, I never got into it when I was a kid. I never liked like a cheese
not even when
sauce.
you're in Philly. That's like saying a racial slur in Philly is if you don't like the cheese whiz on the.
I think you're going to
cheese
hear
sauce.
racial slurs while you're in Philly, whether you want to hear them or not. I think that's just called Philadelphia.
That's right. Yeah, the
Yeah.
Kensington. What's interesting, Ray, about I look at your social media and you are kind of like a throwback on Twitter. And when I say throwback, you're saying funny things. You don't get political. You don't get involved in anything. You're not saying like, here's my stance on abortion. Here's my stance on this. It's like, you kind of stay out of the feuds. And it's for being in this universe where it's so easy to get wrapped up in all the feuds that we have, whether it's, radio shows, podcasts, everything, you kind of just stay out of it. You're like, yeah, no, I'm just putting on shows and doing my thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I know like that's like which by the way, I don't mind stuff like that. Like it is fun to watch from afar, but like
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't but yeah, I don't get involved. I kind of use Twitter like a joke notebook a lot of times where I'll like just write a joke. It's more like just an idea. Like if sometimes like it'll get retweeted like 15 times, great. If not, I don't care. It's more like if I'm writing jokes, I'll just like look through my Twitter. I'm like, that's a funny idea. That's a funny idea. And sometimes I'll look at an old tweet or something and I'll just retweet it so it stays in my head to be like, oh, that's an idea I can do for a joke, just to remind myself, like, I never did anything with it the first time. I tweeted that or whatever. But yeah, so I just use Twitter for that.
Yeah, because that was the beginning of Twitter, like 10, 12, 13 years ago, was if you were a comic, it was the perfect way. Because I know a lot of comics like David Tell are not going to put his material out there on social media. But when you were a young comic, you were trying stuff out, you're an open micer, you were like maybe a road guy, but not like, an A-list comic. You were trying material out. The problem is then they started finding those old tweets that you had in 2010 and say, did you say something, you go, I was working material up. It's hard to tell people in 2022 that just want to jump on a tweet. You say, look, Twitter at one time, if you were a comic or you're someone in this trying to be in this universe, you tried to be funny. You tried to say something funny, you get some, at the time they were called favorites and not likes. And you were trying to get people favoriting your tweet or retweeting. You go, hey, this one got 12 retweets. Hey, maybe I'll put that in my act. Maybe I'll see where it can fit. And you're kind of still doing that. Whereas a lot of other comics either got political, they left Twitter, they got kicked off of Twitter because, certain comics will drop racial slurs or something or get into feuds with people. It's like, you're like, no, it's Ray DeVito is still operating like it's 2009 on Twitter. And it's actually, I'm not
the only one. Mark Norman does that all the time. Like if you watch his act, they, he uses it like that. He'll use it and like tweet something and like tweet a joke, and then he'll put that in his act. Like, so yeah, there's people that do that. And by the way, I think it was Bill Burr that said that like it is like hilarious when they like go through people's old tweets and they find something from like 11 years ago, like, hey, look at how insensitive he was. Like, all right, he said that was one joke 11 years ago. Think about the 11 years he didn't say anything insensitive in a tweet. Like you had to go back 11 years to find something. That's 10 years of good behavior that you're not rewarding. Like, hey, look, like it's obviously not that guy. You're obviously not that person. If they had to go back 10 years to find one horrible thing or one insensitive thing that you tweeted, like it's not like. So yeah, I don't know.
Because when you think about some of these the athletes that got popped for quoting rap lyrics, like Josh Allen from the Bills and Josh Hader, the closer from the San Diego Padres, and they drop the N-bomb in the quote of a rap song they liked when they were 14. Now they're in their mid-20s and they're like, and they didn't delete their Twitter, which of course that's the rookie of the mistake. Delete your Twitter, start over. You got your new blue check mark. You're a pitcher. Wipe all that clean, because especially if you're a suburban white kid, you probably said some things you don't want out there at one time. But I will say though, I'm really glad we didn't grow up with smartphones. We didn't grow up with Twitter and Snapchat and TikTok. I mean, my God, it's I can't even imagine. Like, I'm 34, and when I was in high school, that's when kids were starting to get cell phones. Like, it was starting to become, hey, you know what? We should probably get our 15-year-old a cell phone. But I miss the iPhone craze. I miss the picture phone, everything like that, because high school would have been pretty bad. Pretty bad, I think, for me.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, as far as like, yeah, I don't think, even when I was a kid, I don't think I was like, I think I was like kind of self-conscious to like not say, like, my best friend in high school was black, so I mean, I knew not to say anything. Like, I wasn't gonna say anything racist or whatever, but I don't know, maybe say stuff like in joking content or whatever. But yeah, I guess like, yeah, kids being on social media, like there's no reason to like capture everything. I would have been like how unpopular I was. I wasn't popular in school, so there wouldn't be a lot of people on my phone to begin with. Like,
yeah, I mean, like, one thing with me, because I was talking about this recently on a podcast, is you talk about the beginnings of like how people start off and what is when people fight with trolls, and you're like, oh, there's a troll, he's calling me names or whatever, and you start attacking someone with 3 followers. Chances are that person with 3 followers is 12 years old, and you're dealing with a teenager who's trying to be shocking and trying to get after you. And I was thinking back to, I mean,
I never go after trolls. Like, anyone I don't. Yeah, if they say something funny, I'll like reply back like, all right, that's funny. I'll hit like, even if they're trying to be mean. If it's funny, it's funny. But like, I don't interact like that. Also, I don't know about you, man, but like when I was in middle school, I remember like not buying yearbooks purposely because everyone was going around signing each other's yearbooks,
Mhm.
and I always in my head I'm like, I don't think anybody would sign my yearbook. Like I remember purposely not wanting to buy yearbooks because I'm like, I didn't want to be the kid that like, because you see other kids like, hey, can you sign my yearbook? Can you sign? And I'm like, not a lot of people ask me to sign yearbooks. And I remember like that as a kid. Do you remember that? Did they have that when you were a kid? Like
Sort of.
yearbook signing?
So you're a Gen Xer. Unfortunately, I'm a millennial, and I'm of the millennial generation where they started introducing if you're going to sign his yearbook or her yearbook, you have to sign everybody's yearbook. And then it was
Oh,
Valentine's Day, and they would have Valentine's carnations. And I remember the first year they rolled it out, I didn't get a carnation, and I was really upset by it. Could have been the buck teeth, could have been the braces, could have been the hair and everything. Whatever the case is, the big glasses. And then the next year it was everybody gets a carnation from somebody, or they don't do carnations at all. So that's this whole PC stuff. It did not just start 5 years ago. This has been going on for nearly 30
okay.
years. And so that's when they really, you talk about the participation trophy or the participation. We never got participation trophies. We got ribbons. And that was of that generation. So I that's why we're a very soft generation, why we think that everything is supposed to be for us, and it shouldn't be. It's not. We're not owed everything. And at the time they decided, well, it's going to be bad for kids' morale if Jane I shouldn't say Jane, no one was Jane. We had like 3 Ashleys in my class. So the cute Ashley ends up having all the guys sign her book and everything. But then the ugly girl with the braces and who smells isn't going to get anything. So it sucks, but what are you going to do? We've gotten worse since then.
Yeah. No, I remember like yeah, I definitely wasn't a popular kid. And yeah, I remember like not going to dances because like I didn't have dates. Like I didn't have
You didn't have game.
dates.
I didn't have game either.
Well,
I was terrible.
yeah, like I didn't and yeah, I remember like always being nice to like all the kids just because like I wasn't a popular kid. So it's like you know, like whenever I see someone picking on another kid, I will always like say something to the kid that was like bullying the other kid or whatever. Like I wasn't a fan of that. And because of that, I would then get beat up by the bullies.
Would you be
So
would you be the one where you're around the bullies where the kid's getting beat up? You're like, hey, come on, man, come on, let's stop. Come on, let him be. Let him be. He's a nerd or whatever, or one of those, or
no, I didn't like because I always felt like on the outside. So I didn't like when other kids were also put on the outside. So I get in the middle. But then because of that, I would then become the person what would bully. Like
you'd be the target.
yeah, then I became the target. So like that happened a few times, but yeah, I look back at it like, and a lot of those kids that like, but because of that, like Metallica, ACDC, like everyone, like I to this day I don't like either of those bands. I just don't, and I think it's because all the kids that used to beat the shit out of me were always wearing like Metallica shirts.
I get you.
So like I just hated Metallica. I just like Metallica can suck a dick. Like fuck Metallica.
Oh, so you're not going to go see them when they go on their big
No,
world
it's
tour
nothing
here.
against Metallica. I'm sure they're great human beings, but like it took me a while to like Guns N' Roses because like Guns N' Roses was another band. Like all the fucking assholes always had Guns N' Roses t-shirts. Now I love Guns N' Roses, so I moved past that. But like AC/DC and Metallica, and which also sucked that was also like the Beavis and Butthead were
Yeah,
AC/DC and Metallica,
of course.
which is like came out like a year. When did they come out? Like 91 or something?
Yeah, 91, 92. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like just like I was still in middle school, and then I was like just getting out of middle school, and then that show, and like it just reminded me back like 2 years ago. Those were the kids that were like, and there was always kids that like failed school like 3 years in a row. That's why like they were obviously angry because they sucked at everything in life, so they take it out on other kids. And I was one of the kids that would.
I was just thinking about that.
Take it on.
It's interesting you say that about that you hated a band, but you didn't really know the band. You just hated the people who liked them.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it kind of came to me that the emo craze was when I was in high school. So I'm talking about early to mid 2000s. And that's when bands like My Chemical Romance were really big, and all the losers with the fishnets, and they would paint their nails, and they would wear lip rings and dye their hair black with like a maroon skunk stripe in the middle. And I'm like, oh, these guys are losers in this band. And I had seen them a couple of times. I didn't really like them because I didn't like the crowd. And then I've kind of gone back and I'm like, it's a pretty fucking good band. I really like them.
Yeah. I was big in them.
I hated the people who were a part of it. I never bullied anybody because I was always the guy who was in. I was in the drama club. I was in a band, but I was also the pitcher on the baseball team. So I was always like around, like there were the stoners. So I don't know if that's maybe an overcompensation for when I was a kid that maybe it was a feeling of wanting to be liked. And I guess that's what it was, a good transition in doing stand up, because who wants to go on stage and just be hated the whole time? But yeah, I always wanted to be like, yeah, no,
I've been there. I've been hated. I've been hated on stage. I think like that's one of the things where like it doesn't bother me if a crowd doesn't like me. It's like almost being like a major league pitcher. Like I've been doing stand up long enough where it's like I know the strike zone. Like I know the strike zone.
Yeah.
So I know where that pitch landed. You could pretend like it's a ball, but I know where it landed. So I know that was a strike. So
well, that's what it's doing the reps. That's what doing the reps is for. It's not just to say funny things and work on material. It's working on stage presence, and it's working on how you can handle yourself, whether you're doing a bar gig in front of a couple of people, a bar gig in front of a sold out crowd, or you do a comedy club in front of a couple of people, or a comedy club with a full house. So you have to be in every one of those situations, and it kind of keeps you grounded as a comedian.
Yeah, it's hilarious. Like I was, I got where was I? I think I went to Judge. You ever go to Judge? They do that show on, and it's not.
Oh
bad.
yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
It's not bad, and it could be fun. Like I could work out some stuff there, and it's fun. But like they like Brian and David, they always bring up like, oh, this guy's been on Comedy Central or something, and like the crowd will pay attention, and they'll be good for me. Well, last time I did it, which I think it was 2 weeks ago, and I just said to Brian, I go, don't say anything, just say my name, don't say anything about me, just bring me up, just say, and this next guy is Ray DeVito. So he does that, and I purposely say, I start off with a Johnson & Johnson joke about the COVID vaccine, which does very well. I purposely did a joke that worked before I went into new stuff. And because he didn't say that I done anything, they just like weren't paying attention.
There's no expectation.
Yeah. And it was like, and it was, but I wanted that because before when you say like, oh, this guy, and they all pay attention, and then they like whatever you do. And also like the newer comics, like, oh, this guy's done something. Maybe he can help me out with something. So now they're fake laughing at whatever you say. And I purposely I go, don't say anything. And I didn't get one. There was like 3 people in front that were like listening, paying attention, that like that got the jokes and like the jokes. But for the most part, it's like, yeah, it's like it's a weird gauge in Ohio, at least, like doing shows like that. If they don't say you've done anything, then a lot of these like, and it is an open mic, but it's really
well, in my favor, whether it's
out.
My favorite, whether it's an open mic or it's a bar gig, like an actual booked gig, and nobody's really laughing, but then they come up to you and say, I thought you were really funny. I'm like, you're allowed to laugh. Just because no one else is, you're allowed to. It's that communal feeling where it's just like, is it okay? Can we laugh at this? Is this okay? But it's not for inappropriateness. It's just, I think it's funny, but no one else does. So am I a weirdo? Am I the only one? And it's this weird mind fuck as an audience, because I like being in the audience at a comedy show. I don't like when you talk about the comics table or the comics area of any type of comedy club or whatever. I like being there for the show, whether I'm performing on it or not, because I love comedy that much. And I love that communal. That's what I missed during the whole COVID thing, was the communal feel of everybody getting together and laughing, just letting themselves go, having a couple of drinks, maybe some mozzarella sticks or chicken fingers or whatever the case is, and just enjoying yourself and laughing. And I like being a part of that. And it's just, but I also like the psychology of an audience, of just reading how a room can be, especially if you're featuring. Like if you're featuring or headlining, you kind of look around, you go, okay, Because obviously the whole thing is, do you blame the audience if the audience is bad, or is it you're bad and you can't blame there is no bad audience, it doesn't matter. It's like there's always that weird psychology, that mind fuck that people go through. And I kind of like that challenge. I probably, if I said this 6-7 years ago, I probably would have disagreed with myself, but I do like that challenge now at this point in doing comedy.
I would say this is my advice to like young comics. If you're on a show like that or whatever, like just focus on the few people that are paying attention to you, and just say it to them. Don't worry about other things. Get what I'm saying? Like just
Yeah.
focus on like those four people paying attention, and just worry about that. Like just say it to them, and just block out the other. Just have tunnel vision. Worry about them, and then other people like don't even worry. Don't even worry about the other. As far as like if you're
Mhm.
talking about a bar show, or whatever. But I was like, if I'm doing a bar show, like or a loosely booked bar show or something, like I'm only really there to try out new stuff.
Yeah.
I'll do a couple jokes that I know work because I want to make sure they're okay, and then I'll close with something I know works. But for the most part, like I just got to work. I just got to work on these jokes. Here we go. Let's see. Let's roll. Let's get it out there.
One of my favorite shows I've done this year, because I just like this, is the one we did in North Ridgeville back in March. And it was
Yeah,
weird
it's cool.
because there
All
was
fired up.
there wasn't many people in there, and they weren't there
No.
for comedy except for a couple of people. They showed up because they saw us promote it. But it was one of those odd things where you do a bar gig where people are like, "Oh, I didn't know they're doing comedy. Isn't there supposed to be karaoke tonight? Well, fuck this." And then they left. And then the people that did stay are like, "All right, I guess I'll have another drink." Well, all right, let's see it. Okay, all right, that was kind of funny. And it was one of those where it was such a challenge. It was like doing CrossFit and you haven't worked out in 4 months, and you go, "Let's do it." You have no choice, because it's like
Yeah.
if I'm gonna bomb tonight, I'm bringing all of us with us.
Yeah.
And honestly, it was a lot of fun. And everybody came up to us afterward and we're like, "Oh, that was really funny. We weren't expecting a show like
Yeah.
that." And
It's
again,
like
it
what?
wasn't.
It was like a Tuesday night or Wednesday,
Yeah,
and
it
I
was
was in town. The guy threw us a few bucks. He's like, "Hey, you want to do a show?" Threw us a few bucks. Like, yeah,
and we got
do it. Why not?
hammered. We got
Yeah,
hammered that
yeah.
night. That
They're
was fun. But it was fun because when you're doing comedy for only like maybe a year or a couple of years, when you have a lot of open mic comics, that is that scares people. It's like, uh-oh, I didn't get a laugh. This is a joke that I know when I do my open mic, I do this usually hits, and it didn't hit here. For me, I'm like, and I know for you, because you're the seasoned vet at doing this, you're like, take on the challenge, motherfucker.
Yeah, I don't get mad at them. Yeah, yeah. Also, they're like the clientele in that restaurant is like really old people.
Mhm.
So, and they're very sweet, and yeah, they're just there to have fun, even if they don't. But yeah, I like that place. I don't mind doing so. He used to own, and this is before Jeff Shaw knows the guy, but he used to own the comedy club in Rocky River in the '80s. There was a comedy club there,
Hmm.
and yeah, the guy Tommy owned it. Like Jeff Shaw remembers him, and like he's talking about, yeah, we had Robert Schimmel and the unknown comic. And
Oh,
it
Murray
says,
Langston.
yeah, like he's just naming off these, and I mean, I know the names just because like I'm a comedian, but I mean, obviously Robert Schimmel, we all know, but like some of them, like Bob Nelson, he's saying, which I remember about, and Bob Nelson was a huge deal, like back in the day, the Jiffy Jeff, what, uh, and yeah, just hearing like all these old, like when I was a little kid, I thought everyone loved stand up comedy, and I would watch like HBO specials, like the young comedians HBO specials. And I remember like Fred Stoller, and I thought Fred Stoller was great. He was so like, I don't care. I'll take it down with me. I'm out of control. I don't care. I ate yogurt and it expired yesterday. You can't stop me. I just remember like loving that dude. Like,
Did you
and
like
like
Barry Sobel?
I did. I did. I have a Barry Sobel
Really?
story. Yeah, I got a
Is,
Barry
is he
Sobel.
still alive?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So this is maybe like 10 years ago. It's got to be at least 10 years ago. But I'm at the comic strip. He's on the show at the comic strip, and like I loved him when I was a kid. I thought Barry Silver was the greatest. She's like white guy rap before it was white guy rap was
He did like
the thing.
it was like hand in hand with him and the Beastie Boys were like really
Yeah,
big at that time in the
yeah.
mid '80s.
I'm not the Beastie Boys or Run DMC. I just want to know your zodiac signs. This is a zodiac. It's just, and it was funny for the day. It would crush back in the '80s, and I remember, and I was excited to see him. Like, dude, you're like, oh, I love, and here's what got him. I'm like, dude, I loved you when I was a kid, and that pissed him off.
Oh,
That like turned on, like he just automatically hated me right then and there just for saying that. And then I watched him, and he went up and did the exact same act he did when I was a kid in the 80s and 90s. The same exact act. Like,
and this is what, like 2012?
yeah, he did that. I'm not Run DMC or the zodiac sign. Silly rabbit. Tricks are for kids. Like doing that, and you're like, and it was like, wow. It was just weird. What, like, he didn't change a thing.
Because there's some comics that they didn't write new material, but you still enjoy them. Like Kevin Meaney was one of those where for 30 years he did the "We Are the World" bit, and
You gotta get that puss off your face. Why do you have a puss on your face? What's wrong with you?
he would do that. It's like, why do you do this to your father and I?
Why do you do this to your parents? Yeah,
I don't care. I don't care. My jokes don't go over. I don't care. He doesn't care. And he would do it for. And
I loved Kevin Meaney. I never got to see him live, and sadly he's dead now. Turns out he was gay. I didn't know he was gay.
He was, yeah. And
but then afterwards, you hear that, like, okay, I could see it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then, well, no, he did come out and he did a bunch of gay jokes. He's like, of course I'm gay, and he's doing this like the Paul Lynde thing. But like Kevin Meaney, Otto, and George, like Otto would do the same bit, the JFK assassination, everything for years, but it would kill. But there are some comics that you just go, yeah.
Sobel's jokes did not age well. He was in the movie Punchline with Tom Hanks doing those. He was on those Eddie Murphy specials. He was like the token white guy in those. That was what Chris Rock was on those, Arsenio Hall, Marsha Warfield, and like he was like the token white guy. And his jokes don't age well. Another guy whose jokes do not age well, but I did 2-man shows with him at Hilarities, was Dave Coulier. And this is like a few years after he was on The Surreal Life. And he didn't change a thing. He still did like
did he do Bullwinkle?
He did Rocky and Bull. You ever get pulled over by the cops?
Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my head.
Yeah,
he did like
presto.
Yeah, it's like you ever get pulled over by the cops and want to give him the Bullwinkle voice, and then like did it. But I will say this: he crushed.
Yeah,
they loved every minute of it.
Of course they did. Yeah. I mean, I've seen that with Pauly Shore. I've seen it with certain comics that were, of that stature at one time. I mean, it's a novelty to go see them for the most part. And I think guys like Dave Coulier, guys like who were former, like if Howie Mandel went on tour, I think it's one of those cases who'd be the same thing.
Where he like blows the medical glove out of his nostril or whatever he used to do.
Put it on his head. Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned Marsha Warfield. I got to work with her a few years ago, and she hadn't done stand-up, I think, in like 20 something years at that point. She had gotten into a car accident, and I think she was also going through, because she's also gay, which if you didn't know that at the time, and back in the night court days, then it's like, yeah, she did come out, but she hadn't done stand-up in 20 years or something. And she was on her first leg of her tour when she came back, and she murdered. I mean, absolutely crushed on stage. And I remember watching her. She was on Comic Relief.
You know what? Not because when I started doing comedy, I emceed somewhere where she was headlining, and she did well. I want to say it was maybe Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle, but then again, that's like when I first started. So this was like early 2000s.
Okay, so yeah, that was around the time I think she got into a car accident, and then
Okay.
she just was like, yeah, I'm kind of done with show business. And she started making a comeback on Facebook because she gained a following of all the 80s nostalgia people who are like, hey, what happened to Marsha Warfield? She was funny on Night Court. And she
Yeah.
came back and she was doing a double bill tour with her. It was like the 80s TV tour with
Okay.
Mark Skippy Price. And
how is I never saw him. I can't imagine it. I don't want to.
he's a nice guy.
By the way,
That's
Marsha
how I say.
Warfield was a super nice lady. She was
Yes.
funny. She crushed on stage, but yeah, she was a super nice lady.
She's it takes a second because she still has that sass, and but she was really good. And who's the Thea Vidal was unbelievable. Like she's a little older now, and so she sits when she does stand up. She's like Big J Okerson, but again, another one just crushing in the crowd. So I loved it. So some of those that they do surprise you over time of being like a really good comic. You mentioned earlier in your career, and we were talking about days in grade school or middle school and high school. What was it that I'm always fascinated about? What got people into doing comedy? Like, what was is it the years of, whether it's, I don't know, it was rejection or insecurities? Was there something in your life that happened that triggered this? Or what was it that got you into doing stand-up?
I don't. I always, like I said, like I always loved stand-up comedy, and I just assumed everybody did. I didn't realize like I was like I didn't realize that Fred Stoller wasn't a household name. You know what I mean? Who else back then? It turns out he was best friends with Norm Macdonald. He died. Not Barry Stoller, but the other guy that like kind of sounds like Norm. Some guy that had cancer, that he was big in the 80s, and I can't think of his name, but shit. I know the second
Best
I
friends
get
with Norm.
He also talked like Drake Savage. I think Drake Savage was his name. And I just thought everyone knew that, and I would go to school, and like the people that I knew, I'm like would say and like they wouldn't laugh at those jokes, and they were just like, or Robert Schimmel jokes, and they're like wouldn't get the jokes. I'm like, how do you not get that? Like, I just assumed everyone and then I just knew I liked it, and then it's one of those things. Like I always knew, like even here's when I knew where I could be all right doing comedy. This is Dave Schwensen in Cleveland, Ohio. I think he still has them, like these improv workshop classes.
Yes, he still does them.
And I was in it. Ryan Dalton was in it. I think it was me, Chad, and Ryan all started stand-up comedy. I want to say on the same night at the Robin Hood. But Dalton and I were in Dave Schwensen's workshop class at the Improv. And one of the first jokes I ever wrote, and this is I was dating this girl, and I wanted to have sex. I want to have sex, and she goes, "No, I can't have sex with you because she goes, "No, I can't have sex with you because I respect you too much." And then my buddy's like, "Dude, you're so stupid." It's like I had sex with her on the first date, and I'm like, "Wow, dude, she doesn't respect you at all." And like that was like one of my first. And then Dave Schwensen stopped me, and he's like, "Listen, we got one rule. If you're going to do this, you can't do other people's jokes. You got to do your own jokes." And like, I wrote that joke, and that's what said to me, like, I think I can do this in a weird way.
So
it's weird. Like being accused of like saying someone else's joke was like, and I was like, I think I could do this. Like he thinks that's a like, that was my dumb, that's not even a great joke, but just the fact that he just assumed I took someone's joke, and I'm like, I think I could do this.
Well, and that's what's interesting about the early days of doing stand-up is I think everybody's influenced by someone. And in your first year or two, there are going to be some very subtle hints or some very blatant hints of who you are influenced by, whether it's Dave Attell, whether it's Louis, whether it's Chappelle, whether it's Chris Rock, whatever it is at the time that you grew up with. And then
it's probably Dane Cook. That's probably who, when I started doing comedy, like when I first started, like Dane Cook was huge.
Yep.
And I was also like, I was doing like, I mean, I've talked on my podcast before, but when I used to do a crocodile hunter impression, I would wear a wig in my pants. I would do this joke where I go, I'm Italian. We just want a woman to rub our fingers through our hair, like you, or even this guy. I don't care. Just rub her fingers through our hair. And then I pulled down my pants. It'd be a big, hairy, bushy wig in my underpants. And I would always do it early in my act because I didn't like the wig being in my, but I would do anything for a laugh, which I always tell young comics, just get a laugh. First, you got to get a laugh. Then you could determine
how to get the laugh.
How to get the laugh.
It's like you if you get the laugh first, no matter what it is, then you figure out how you can make them laugh.
Yeah. And by the way, these are all horrible jokes. The crocodile hunter impression and the like the dumbest jokes, and they're stupid. And yeah, I'm not embarrassed to say that I did that. I'm just being honest. But yeah,
it's almost
horrible.
20 years ago that you were doing them, and we don't, I mean, unless you're Artie Lang, you're not really going back in time to your first year doing stand-up and still doing that material, but it's something to build upon. Like I remembered I wanted to do stand-up as early as I think it was 18. So
imagine if I never changed my jokes. I'm still doing like,
yeah.
And I used to and not to interrupt you, we'll go,
No,
but like remember those entertainment coupon books?
Yes.
Those all, like, I used to do a joke about that was like one of my big things, and I ended up having a callback to like close my set, but I go, oh, my mom gave me one of these, like, here, use this, get ideas for dates. Oh yeah, that's exactly what it's just a woman lugging around with this encyclopedia of coupons. Like any women into getting half price off on putt and stuff, like when to listen to Sinatra on our ways we get half price appetizers, like just dumb shit like that. But imagine like doing that, never change your act, still doing.
The only way, you could do that with Groupon. Like you can just transition if you have something.
Oh, those jokes are dumb. Like they need to be gone.
Oh, I'm just saying that you got to start somewhere.
Yeah,
you got to start somewhere, and because I wanted to start when I was 18, and the problem is I couldn't. Right now, there's so many open mic places, but in Cleveland in the mid 2000s, there weren't any places that I could find.
I do karaoke. I go to karaoke nights, put my name in, and be like, I'm going to do 3 minutes of jokes. And this is before karaoke became what it is now. Like now they would hate you. Like, what? No, like the DJ's got special effects. And imagine going up to Hot Carl right now. But hey, I'm going to do 4 minutes of jokes at around the corner.
He's load. Well, that's what they would do is they would have CDs at the time. So they got to load the CD.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, hey, while I have a couple of seconds here, how's everybody doing? Hey, have you ever tried this? You could do a little bit of that.
Bring out the kid with the wig in his pants. That's
I want to hear the crocodile hunter guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was but like I couldn't find anything for under 21 where I can go. So, but I was writing jokes, and then I realized, so I had them on this yellow sheet of paper. I mean, just really kind of like this. And I wrote a bunch of them down, and then you start looking at it and you go, I don't know if that's all great. Then I went a couple of years later when I said I'm not going to do it. And I didn't start doing comedy until I was 25, I think. And then I looked back at my old notes and I'm like, these are like Rich Voss jokes. Like they're not verbatim.
So they're not good. Zing. No,
this
I
guy
like
gets
Rich
it.
Voss. Yeah.
But I was like, that's not. It's like I was always somebody that I'm very. I don't want to say I'm one of those guys that would text somebody. Like I remember texting Florentine that I had a joke that sounded like it could be his, and I had to ask him, and I said, "This sounds like it
I
could
would
be
never
yours."
write something that's horrible. Why would you say that? I don't write this shit.
He's like,
why would you insult me?
Maybe I said something like that, but go ahead. It doesn't matter to me.
But you took the funny out of it. I said that, but you took the punchline out.
But it was just like I could tell who I was influenced by. I was influenced by the Vosses and the Bobby Kellys and the Nick DiPaolos and Jim Norton and Colin Quinn and Louis at the time. And I'm like, okay, that's fine to be influenced by them, but I can't do that. We're not in a rock band. We're doing tribute groups. I mean, you don't have comedy karaoke where it's like, hey, I memorized all of George Carlin's "You Are All Disease. I'm going to do it tonight here in front of everybody." It's like you have to find your voice at some point, and it takes years. It's hard to tell comics this, to stay with it until you figure out who you are, who you are on stage. And I'm talking about the entire using the whole stage with that whole presence. And it's tough. And that's why, you've seen how many, probably hundreds, maybe thousands of comics that you've done a show with have already dropped out and are working a regular job and not doing it anymore.
No, sadly, I still see a lot of the guys I started out with.
Yeah,
They're still at
unfortunately,
the open mics over at Judge, and I like them all. But like, yeah, something like, yeah, there's a lot of hobbyists that are, which is fine. But it's like, yeah, I think a lot of people like it's just like a place for them to. Oh, did you freeze? Oh no,
I should still be
okay.
here. Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of guys that like it's just like a place for them to hang out and drink. It's more like just a hangout, which is cool. But at the same way, it's like, all right, if you're not serious about it, why you? I don't know. That's just me being the purist. Like, all right, don't. But also, like, the more you do comedy, the less it's possible to steal a joke because we're all narcissists.
No,
And I got to make every joke about myself.
that's true.
I can't steal a joke because it wouldn't be about me.
Well, you're not black, you're not gay, you're not fat, you're not a woman,
Yeah.
you're not trans, so you can't lean back on that. So you're like, oh shit, I got to write
Yeah.
material now.
Yeah, everything. No, but I mean that like just me being self-centered as a comic. You got to be a little self-centered when it comes to writing jokes, because you just write all the jokes as they're coming, like from you, like, you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
you know,
No,
so,
it's tough. It's tough to tell people to stay with it and everything, but you just keep plugging away. The one thing about me is that when I've done shows and this is just my personality. Like I could be friends with the people, I talk to people, but when I do comedy, I treat it as a job. It's not a hang for me. And just like when I work my years working in radio and working day jobs and whatever it is, I don't go there to make friends. I go there to work, to make money.
I'm
And
not
hey,
here
if
to
I-
be friends. I'm not here to make friends.
not here to make friends. It's like I want to go there and I want to do my job, and I'm not there so I can just hang out and chit chat and I guess I'm going to do a few minutes on stage, or hey, I'm featuring tonight, but I'm really here for the free drinks and to meet with other fellow comics who are on the spectrum. It's like, no, I kind of want to be there because my goal is, and that's why I take it seriously. That's why I don't drink before I go on stage anymore, because I enjoy the feeling of being completely under control. I'll drink after, trust me, I'll drink and I'll hang out with people after, but I treat it as a job until the job gets done. And that's how I've always been, like with anything I've done in my life, but especially with stand-up too. That's why a lot of comics, I don't do the comics table. I don't hang out with comics.
See, I'm the opposite. I like the comic hang. I do. I like hanging out with other people that are in the same dumb, messed up mindset that I am. Like, but I mean, but also like that are serious about comedy. Like I do like the comic, and yeah, like any newer comic in Cleveland, like I like watching other comics too. But yeah, I've given a lot of jokes to comics that I see. I've given Norman jokes that he uses and stuff like that I see him use on stage and things. I've given jokes to a lot of comics that it's just like something you think. Gaffigan, I've given Gaffigan jokes. Gaffigan's given me jokes. So it's so I do like the comic hang. I do like hanging out with other comics, and like that dude Zach and Jared and Zach just asked me to close out the show tonight in Kent. So I'll go there, and I like those guys. And yeah, I'll listen to their jokes. And if I see something, I'll be like, hey man, why don't you take it this direction? Why don't you, I do like the comic hangs. That's one thing I do like. So I got to disagree with you on that.
Well, I should say I like it after I get done. When I'm on
Okay.
stage, then I can hang out and talk to people. But like I've got,
Oh, I don't like
material in
hanging
mind.
out before. Yeah, like beforehand, I'm like going through my own stuff. Like, all right, let me. So yeah, when I'm done off stage, I don't care. And I do like busting balls, and I think sometimes like a lot of comics like don't like. I don't know in New York and stuff they get it, but I mean a lot of these like cattle call open mic type things, which I don't like doing these cattle call. There's no way there's funny 50 people in Cleveland on this given night. That's impossible. That's impossible. So
God, it was a
it's
couple of
not
years
gonna be
ago.
fun.
I remember I was in Columbus, and it was just I forgot what I was doing, and I was covering something in my job, and I'm like, you know what, I'm in town, I may as well do an open mic. And I get there at this one place and they said, hey, it's like, yeah, we've got the sign up sheet over there. I'm like, yeah, sure. I looked. There were 29 comics on the bill, and I was 28 on the list. And I'm like, so by the time I go up on stage, it's the bartender and the host are the only people in the audience because everyone just left because it's like 2:00 in the fucking morning.
Yeah. But there's no way there's 29 funny people in one room at that time. Like, it's just impossible. So
somebody would be in the hospital because they've been laughing so hard because their rib cage would just burst out of their chest.
Yeah. But if you're new, you have to do it. And if you're a new comic, that's not bad because you're hanging. Like, that's what I needed. Like, taking that Dave Swenson comedy class, like, didn't exactly help me become a good comic at all. But what it did do is, I mean, Dalton was in it. There was this Asian kid, Rich Brett, who was very funny. He was in it. I don't know what happened to him, but he was very funny. I remember one of his jokes. I still think so, but he was been doing it like Ernest Hemmings. I don't know if you remember Ernest Hemmings. He was running around Cleveland for a while.
No, he had the cats lived in Key West, right? Who's the writer?
No, it's not Ernest Hemmings. It's a black dude named Ernest Hemmings. But like they knew of like open mics in Toledo and Columbus, and like it gave you a little community of guys to start out with, and we'd run around and like do shows together. That's how I met Dalton, and Dalton's the one that brought me to the Robin Hood. And yeah, so like that's how you just kind of like met people. But that dude, I thought he had a hilarious joke. I don't know if you remember this, years ago. It was a gymnast. I want to say, not that it matters, but I think she was like an Asian gymnast or something. It was like for the Pan Am Games or whatever. And she did a vault in practice and like landed weird and was paralyzed. I don't know if you
Doesn't
remember.
ring a bell, no.
Okay. Whatever. So what happened? So it was in the news at the time for a little while. It's like, God, you see that? The girl in the Pan Am Games, like during warm-ups, she like came up the pole vault and landed and she was paralyzed. Like, it's like, wow, it's like, that's horrible, right? That's horrible. Can you imagine if that would have been a real meet, how horrible her score would have been? And to this day, I just like, that's such a great joke. And like, yeah.
I mean, well, yeah, that's what it comes down to.
It's so funny. It was just like, it was such a dark, funny joke. Like even then I was like, oh dude, that's just funny.
Because, we both of us, especially you with being around for, as long as you have been doing it and in two different cities and all across the country, is that you have a lot of people who come up, say, like, I want to do comedy. People have told me I'm funny. What is the ultimate advice? Because you would say, just try it, just go to an open mic. But do you think somebody who wants to try it should just go as an audience member a few times before they decide to go up?
They should Venmo me money and I will help put your set together. No, I'd say find the punchline. Find out what's funny. What's funny about whatever that thought is. What is the punchline? And then work backwards. I'd say that. Find the punchline. What is actually funny? And then work backwards from that. And then the other thing is, even if you have no followers, use Twitter as a joke notebook. So you have a funny idea, put it on Twitter so you have a joke notebook. Be like, oh yeah, that was a funny idea. And then that way you can like keep track of like funny ideas. That's and again, you can Venmo me money and hit me up on Twitter at Ray DeVito and Venmo me some money and I will help you put your set together.
Well, and then, I mean, I remember when I started, because do you know Steve Guy?
Yeah. He actually has a decent show on Wednesdays.
Okay, yeah, because he's the one who got me into doing real well. There were a couple like Bob Levy I worked with. He was my first paid gig, and Don
I feel
Jameson
sorry. I feel sorry for you for that. You had to follow him eating blue cheese out of woman's ass.
I think he finally stopped. He was on wife number 3 by then. But Steve Guy's the one who said, "Dude, you're really funny on Twitter. You should start doing stand up." And I remember telling him at the time, I said, just because you think I'm funny on Twitter doesn't mean I'm good on stage. And, But he's the one who kind of helped get that out for me. And I'm like, all right, I started doing that. But what I wanted to make sure before I started doing stand-up for me is not only having amusing concepts, but I wanted to see the craft a little bit more, to see who does what. I guess it was very analytical that I was using as opposed
No,
to
I wouldn't think that deeply.
but that's what I did at
Nah,
the time.
I don't think. Yeah, like what I said before.
My career is ruined.
No, just learn how to get a laugh, and then once you get a laugh, then you could worry about deciding how to get that laugh. Just get a laugh. You got to learn how to get a laugh, and then worry about getting laughs the way you want to get them.
Yes,
that's my
so
advice.
yeah, listen to Ray, because you Gen Z wannabe comics who go up there with your long 7-minute stories with no punchline or payoff. Find a punchline, please, for God's sake. If you think your story is funny, okay, but make it pay off, and don't make me sit there and go, you took me on this journey for what? I'm in the middle of nowhere. I've heard too many, like, come on, where's it going? Where's it? That's it? Oh, you're done? Okay, you got the light? Okay, well, all right, well, good night, everybody. Jesus God. So yes, find
Hannah Gatsby.
Please find.
I just love all the hate that lady got. She's raking in millions. So
oh, yeah,
good for her.
Well, I mean, think about it. It's like if you're a comic, you're in a car, you're on the freeway. Are you just going to keep driving on the freeway? You need to get off at some point. You need to get gas. You need to go get food. You need to get to your destination.
Tell me about it. I need to get off. Quit talking about my sex life. Lord knows. She's like, will you finish already?
So you said Venmo, Ray DeVito on Twitter. You've got your podcast. You got your Patreon. Where can we find you? I'm kidding.
I did not give my Venmo. I was joking.
But you very well can. We'll get the plugs out here.
My YouTube channel is, the G-Hole Podcast on all things podcast. Patreon.com/Ray DeVito. But social media, Twitter, RAYDEVITO. Instagram, RAY.DEVITO. And I got two. My dry bar should be coming out, because everyone that shot their dry bar around right around my time, they started to come out. So I assume mine should be out in the next few months. I hope. But I got my own special coming out regardless. Blind Mike over at Guest Digital. I have a blind kid editing my special. The special's already done, but he's putting it into Reels so they can be on TikTok, Instagram, and the Facebook Reels to get in the algorithms. And yeah, I'll be in New York next couple weeks. Poughkeepsie, headlining that next weekend. And
is that with Zenhauser?
Yeah, I'm on 3 shows at the Stand next week. 2 shows at Brooklyn Comedy Club. I'll get a few spots at Stand Up New York, the Comic Strip. The only club I'm not past at New York City would be the Comedy Cellar, but I never try to get in there. And hopefully with this special, and I got a reason to hit them up. I'll be doing podcasts at Gas Digital and Stand Up New York. Let me do podcasts in their studios. So
so what you're saying is you're past at more clubs in New York than Gino Bisconti.
I don't know Gino's, but I don't, people shit on Christy Mayer and Gino Bisconti. I'm not going, all I'm going to say is they found an audience. If you have an audience, yeah, go ahead, play to your audience. They are fine doing that. Let them do it. You know what I mean? I
was just trying to set you up here.
No, I'm not.
I got the baseball, which, by the way, is autographed by Jim Thome.
Hey, the Tominator? I don't even know if that's his name. But no, I don't.
I think that was the name of a burger they had at McDonald's in the mid-90s. It was the Tominator.
I'm going to hit up. I don't know if I'll get on. I know I'll do Kumia show with Levy and Brennan, but I'm going to hit up them and see if I can do Kumia show while I'm there. I don't think I'm gonna fit on the other shows. Like Gino said, I was like, yeah, you can't do in hot water, and it's fine. I don't think I'm gonna fit on that show anyways. I don't think I'm gonna fit on that show. Like, it wouldn't be good to have me on that show because I'm not in that realm. You know what I mean? So, but I would love to do the Anthony Cumia show while I'm there. So we'll see. At least I'll be on with Brennan and Levy. I'll see if I can get on a day by myself as well.
Gas Digital, I was there doing a few podcasts a couple of months ago, and they got a great little thing they have going on over there.
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
They're good people over there. It's a lot of fun. I went with Florentine. Florentine did my show at the Stand, and then we were hanging out afterwards. And he was like, "Hey, I'm going to do Godfrey's podcast. Do you want to roll or whatever?" And I was like, "Yeah." I'm like, "I'll go to Gas Digital." Usually they have beers in the fridge. I was going to hang out, have a few beers, and then I got there, and Harrington's like, "Hey, you want to do Ian and Amico's podcast tomorrow morning?" So I didn't get
the
to
Bye Guys podcast.
Yeah. So I didn't get to hang because it's like, all right, now I got to be up at 10 a.m. So I took the subway out. And I wanted to hang for Florentine, and I saw a little bit, and they were crushing. And then I rolled out. So yeah, it's always cool hanging out there because like they'll put you on other podcasts while you're there. So
I was gonna have beer there, but they were out of beer by the time I got there. So I did a shot of tequila with Mike Figs.
Oh yeah, good guy, Mike Figs.
I wasn't drinking before that because I was going on Godfrey's podcast. I want to be on like I said before, I go on stage, I try not to drink, and then Mike Figs is like, "Oh, you want a shot?" And he pours this like fucking like rocks glass size full of tequila, and I'm like, "Oh boy, this is not going to be good." And ended up actually turning out pretty well on doing Godfrey's show, so it was cool. It was a good time.
Nice. Are you wrapping up? Is that what this is?
Yeah, we're as we said in the radio business before Gino got me. Again, I always say that Gino didn't get me fired. I got myself fired. Yes,
I heard you rebounded. I heard you got you're doing all right. You got a decent job now.
Yeah, I got a good job right now.
You can't talk about it, so you don't.
My high vis. Well, yeah, no, it's just the trolls come after me, dox me. But yeah, no, it's I'm doing. People will always say, "Oh, you say you're doing better, but you really miss it." It's like, no, I don't. I would prefer. In fact, I've had more people from my podcast come see my comedy shows than any time I promoted it on regular radio. I mean, for years, I would be, "Hey guys, I'm doing this show tonight." And because of that, I couldn't travel because I have to be up at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning the next day. So I couldn't go on the road and do anything. I had to stay local. I would do, your shows, or I would go to the Funny Stop, or I would, occasionally do other bar gigs around town, or go to Columbus at least for the night. But for the
Are you in Akron?
Yeah, for now, but I'm moving back up to Cleveland in a couple of months.
I'm gonna say, swing by that show at Kent. I'm sure I'll let them know. You want to I
gotta work tonight, unfortunately. I can't but so like after we do this, I gotta head out and do my job so I can afford my labor of love doing my podcast here. But no, it's a good time. Ray, thanks so much for doing this. I appreciate this. I'm gonna put this out.
Thanks for having me, buddy.
It'll be out. I'm recording this Tuesday the 29th. It'll be out Wednesday the 30th. So it's gonna go out about 12 hours from now.
All right, awesome. Is it free or is it on the Patreon?
Both.
Both? Okay, I'll share it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll put it out there for you.
All right, cool. All right, thanks for having me, buddy.
Absolutely.